To be a human being is to be stained glass, all of us, beautiful still in our dignity and in our creation, but really kind of a collection of parts here because of what it's like to live in a war-torn world, Psalm 91 world like we do, with these forces of darkness against us and childhood trauma and just being exposed to the heartache of the world every day. Did you know that you were not meant to know about the heartache of the entire planet every morning on your phone? The human soul was not created for omniscience. You were never intended to handle it. Only God can handle the heartache of the planet. But when you are exposed to the shootings, right, and the deceptions and the human trafficking, it's like, whoa, like, yeah, this is a rough moment on the human soul. And Jesus is the integrating center of our humanity. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Wild at Heart podcast here in the week of March 10th. And you can see we have some of our staff with us, our wonderful Jamie, Alex, and then joining Alan and me this week in the studio. This is the third kind of in a series. If you haven't been tracking with us, I have just released a new book that we're pretty excited about because of the message in it and because of just the exquisite intimacy with Jesus that it invites us all into and helps us practice, helps us get into, it kind of shows the way. And what you just watched, if you were watching on YouTube, what you just heard is an excerpt from a really beautiful film series we made around this. And what we're going to do this week is we're going to show you a little bit of it, and we're going to talk about it, kind of process it as a team here. So welcome. I think this is going to be a really special episode. Before we do anything else, though, you know what we're going to do? We're going to stop and we're going to let it all go. Whatever your day has already been, whatever your week has already been, we got to get out of the chaos and get out of the madness and just pause and release all things. So let's do that before we do anything else. Oh, Jesus, I do. I already need to release everything to you again. I can feel it. I feel it in my body. I feel it in my soul, my racing thoughts. And so I'm just going to release every person in my life to you right now. I'm just going to release every person to you right now. Who are those people, friends, that you just need to give them over to God right now? Yeah, that's really good. We just keep releasing and we say, Lord, I also give you everything else, the projects, the work, I'm late, the news, everything. And just release the world and all things to you. Would you restore our union? Would you restore our oneness? Just bring me back to my own soul and to union with you here. Breathe into me your life and your love, Jesus. Restore our union. And come meet me here in this week's podcast. In your name, we all pray. Amen. Okay, that's really good. I never regret the pause. I never regret it. I had a friend admit to me, he's like, oh, it's so irritating. When you guys start the podcast each week with the pause, it's so irritating because it catches us, right? In the drive and in the, and it is irritating. I admit it. It is designed to really stop us in the momentum, but I never regret it. Yeah. Right? I never regret doing it once I do it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. So here's what we're going to do. If you're a regular audio listener, I want to invite you this week to jump over onto YouTube Not while you're driving, maybe, but if you can switch over and find this episode on YouTube, because I want to show you part of a beautiful film series that we made around this message, around Experience Jesus, really, which is the new book. And we created a film series that you all could use in your homes with your friends, go through the content together. Yeah. But it's filmed in a really inviting way. It's also really beautifully done. So yeah, well done, everybody who worked on that. So what we're going to do is we're going to play, is it episode 4?
Episode 4.
Yeah, from a 6-part?
5-part
series. Okay. And yeah, we're just going to jump right into, we chose this one because the content of it is so deep and so beautiful. We're just going to play it. It runs about 20 minutes. You'll enjoy the audio. If you're, in your commute right now, you'll enjoy it. It'll make total sense. It'll just sound like me right now talking to you. If you want to flip over onto video, you can sit back and really enjoy the visual experience as well. And then when we come out of it, the 4 of us are going to process with you that content. So let's listen to part 4 in the film series around experiencing Jesus. Friends, welcome back, everyone, to session 4. We just got 2 to go, and this might be my favorite. Jesus as the integrating center of all things. Let me tell you why I am especially fond of what we are about to talk about, for 2 reasons. One, because if you read the record of the saints down through the ages, Orthodox, Catholic, Protestant, there is a unity of voice that the epicenter of the experience of Jesus, of our Papa, our Father, of Holy Spirit, is the sweetness of the union and all of what they would call consolation. It's an old word that means comfort, care, and something like well-being as a result of being loved. That is through the entire record. And I love that. I love that because from that place, so much else can flow. Now, we're talking about the experience of Jesus. And the other reason I'm so excited about this is because in this punishing moment on humanity, the question of, is there any provision for human brokenness? Is there any provision for restoration? Is there any provision for our wounds, the harm we've endured? Is there any provision for trauma? You see, folks, we're at a time where on one hand, mental health services have never been more abundant. I mean, there are more psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists, counselors, social workers, mental health care professionals. There's more clinics. There's more opportunities, intensives and such, healing prayer, spiritual direction and formation. And yet, we are not even catching up to the need. Okay, so the need is going like this. And Jesus is the integrating center of all things. What might that mean for this moment? I actually think that this is a phenomenal gospel opportunity as we discover what we could bring to the world in terms of human brokenness and what Jesus could bring to us, maybe even right now in today's session. So I want to read one of my favorite passages in all of the Bible. It's in Colossians chapter 1. And it says this about Jesus. Christ is the visible image of the invisible God.
Okay, so there you are. Like, that will help you with the snorkel goggles, like the invisible and the visible. What is God like? Well, we have Jesus, literally embodied God, okay, showing you what the Father is like, what God is like. It's so beautiful. He existed before anything was created and is supreme over all creation. For through him, Jesus, God created everything in the heavenly realms and on earth. He made things we can see and the things we can't see. So there's the two parts of reality, one kingdom, two parts, all right? Thrones, kingdoms, rulers, and authorities in the unseen realm. Whoa, there's the re-enchantment of our spiritual imagination. You live in a highly populated universe, okay? Everything was created through Jesus and for him. He existed before anything else. And here's the verse. And he holds all things together. I love that. Hebrews chapter 1, in a similar expression, says that he holds all things together by the power of his mighty command. So Jesus Christ is the integrating center of all things. Now, why this is important and how we can begin to participate in it is because you and I are living in the hour of decreation, of the unmaking of all things. The enemy has been up to this since the Garden of Eden, but it has been escalating in our moment. The enemy takes apart the truth. He decreates the truth when he tells a lie, okay? And if we buy that lie, like, you can shatter families with a lie. You can shatter churches and countries, okay? He decreates families and churches and beautiful places when he tears them apart through the hatred that we talked about, or just his destructive purposes. In this hour, he is literally pulling apart and decreating gender, which is so crucial to human understanding and identity. In Genesis chapter 1, when it says that we are made in the image of God, he says male and female, he made us. And so the pulling apart of gender and the heartache and trauma around gender identity, the heartbreak of it, you can see the decreation, the malice of it, right? And the mental health crisis. I mean, what do you do with data like this? Nearly 1 in every 2 young people have an issue with anxiety, are struggling with anxiety. I mean, what might it be if we could help them and the human race into the refuge of God and into the consolation of Jesus, who is the integrating center of our humanity? Oh, this is awesome. Okay, so here's where we're going to go. We're going to go from Colossians, the integrating center, and we're going to go back to Isaiah 61, one of Jesus's favorite verses, because this is the passage that he quotes in Luke chapter 4 when he announces his purpose. I'm here. This is why. And he says this, the Spirit of the sovereign Lord is on me, on Jesus. For the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. Yes, economically, but poverty in all of the human condition. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted and proclaim freedom for captives and release from darkness for prisoners. Okay, the promise of this is exquisite. So, brokenhearted, we hear that and we go, oh yeah, like people who are mourning, people who maybe lost a loved one. That's not what it means. In the Hebrew here, it is lev for heart and shawar for brokenness, shattered. It literally means shattered human hearts, broken hearts. And what's interesting is when Isaiah uses this elsewhere, it's not poetry, it's not metaphor, it's not symbolism. He means it literally, literal brokenness. And now thousands of years later, the neuroscience is catching up with this to report, this is sort of common understanding now in the therapeutic world, that wounding and especially trauma fragments the human personality. To be a human being is to be stained glass, all of us. Beautiful still in our dignity and in our creation, but really kind of a collection of parts here because of what it's like to live in a war-torn world, Psalm 91 world like we do, with these forces of darkness against us and childhood trauma and just being exposed to the heartache of the world every day. Did you know that you were not meant to know about the heartache of the entire planet every morning on your phone? The human soul was not created for omniscience. You were never intended to handle it. Only God can handle the heartache of the planet. But when you are exposed to the shootings, right, and the deceptions and the human trafficking, it's like, whoa, like, yeah, this is a rough moment on the human soul. And Jesus is the integrating center of our humanity. So what the therapeutic world has discovered for quite some time now is that within every human being is what we would call young places. And it doesn't take much when you are young for trauma of any kind to shatter your humanity, because you were meant for Eden. You were meant for a world of safety and love and delight over you every single day. And when that is either withheld or the violent opposite is given in some form, it does shatter the human personality. It breaks our heart. And part of us remains stuck at that age. And Jesus Christ is the integrating center of all things. Okay? What's beautiful about this? So you might remember the passage in Revelation 3, where Jesus says, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in. And the expression he uses, we will have a meal together. Okay, it's intimacy, right? It's communion. It's lingering together. Now, what's fascinating about that is that's a letter written to Christians. Now, I know we use the passage in like evangelistic terms sometimes, open the door of your heart to Christ, and that's really good. And hopefully you have done that in your life. Hopefully you have opened the door of your heart to Jesus. But he is asking more. He is knocking on the doors within us where trauma, heartache, loss, grief, abandonment, or just chronic disappointment, chronic suffering has caused the kind of broken-heartedness that Isaiah 61 is talking about. Jesus says this. He says, if you will give me access, I can heal your fragmented humanity. Now, I want to say, I believe in mental health services. I have been to counseling. I've been a therapist for 30 years. I've been to trauma intensives. But here's the problem, folks. In the developed world, the church in the West has accidentally and unintentionally fallen into a model for human healing that requires thousands of dollars, usually several years, and access to professionals. And while I believe in all that, what do you say to those 12-year-old girls in India who are being prostituted every night to abusive men? What do you say to those little boys that are being taken to hotel rooms in Chiang Mai and in your city and abused every single night? What do you say to their shattered humanity? That unless they can get to a Western professional and a therapist and have time. Now, I want to say, the people who know this most are the mental health professional community. They know the need for a greater provision, and many are making heroic efforts on those fronts. It's not enough. God has made provision for the human race in and through Jesus Christ. This is the greatest news in the world. The problem being, as we've been talking about, discipleship to the internet and the pace of life and the trauma and the tsunami of media and all that has cut us off from this epicenter of human experience, Christian experience, where Jesus Christ can come into and heal the human heart. Now, often it is facilitated by others. Praise God, this may come to you through a loving priest or therapist or just a mature, prayerful friend. But what I'm saying is, it is not limited to any single place, person, resource on the planet. Jesus is available to everyone. And because Jesus lives outside time and space, he has access to your entire story. And he is able to take you back and enter into moments of pain, loss, grief, fear, and be the integrating center of your humanity. He really does heal the human heart. And gang, I just got to tell you, I've seen it more than 1,000 times now. And my friends in the therapeutic world and Christian therapists, we're seeing it all over. Jesus is doing this. And one of the most remarkable movements right now in the world is the salvation that is coming to the Muslim community, the Islamic community, by direct encounters with Jesus Christ. Like they're in situations where they can't get a Bible, they can't get to the gospel, and Jesus is just walking into their lives. And this is what they're reporting in the tens of thousands. Now, what I mean by he is walking in, like he's literally showing up in dreams, and they encounter him in their sleep, and he is showing up in their bedrooms in their waking hours, and Jesus is coming to them because it's the only way they can access him right now. And then he introduces himself and he says, "Will you open your heart to me?" And they say, "Yes, please." And they are a Christian for life, forever. So Jesus does this. He can walk in and access our trauma, our brokenness, our fear, our wounds, our loneliness, if we give him access. Okay, so here's how the knocking goes. I stand at the door and knock. Something will happen where you will suddenly experience an emotion that's out of nowhere. There's tears, there's fear, there's "don't touch me." Something will happen where God will raise the unhealed places of your humanity. And he is asking you, will you give me access? Will you let me in? Now, if we go back to that sweet communion with Christ, that's the epicenter of just Christian discipleship, with learning union with Christ. Well, as we invite union with Christ into these places, as Leanne Payne used to say, the soul is healed through union with Christ. It is the best news in the world because you can access this anytime, anywhere. You can bring this to people anytime, anywhere. Is to open up the pain, find that young place, let Christ in. A dear friend of mine, for a number of years, was having this compulsion experience. All she wanted to do was go home. And she would think about it, dream about it. And her story was she had a really, actually a pretty sweet young childhood, very young years. And then there was trauma when the family left that support system and went to a new city where there was just heartache, loss, and dad was gone all the time. And there was alcoholism. And she, as an adult woman, she just kept having this compulsion to go home. I just want to go home. So she did. At one point, with her husband, she went back to her childhood home and walked around her childhood home. But what she realized in that moment, and what Jesus did actually, was that, oh, there's a young place in me. There's an 8-year-old that is stuck here in the past. And the neuroscience is showing all this stuff, folks. I'm not making this up. What they were able to do in prayer right there was to invite Jesus to come for the 8-year-old, to love her, to comfort her, and to be the integrating center of her humanity. In fact, the word shalom, that beautiful Hebrew word, it actually means wholeness. It means to put the fragmented back together. Jesus brings shalom when he reintegrates our inner shattered world, or just comes simply to a wound, a place of fear, a place of chronic suffering. We open the door and we say, Jesus, come in. I need you here. I need you here. Be the integrating center of my life. And so sometimes this does need to be facilitated by someone else. And so if you're feeling, whoa, things are coming up, and you've read chapters 10 and 11 in the book, please read those chapters. You might find that at this point you go, I need to go see a therapist. I need to go see someone who can really help me through this. That's great. But what I want to also assure you is that Jesus can access you right now, wherever you are in your life. You can take a quiet moment after you turn off this session and pray again what we're about to pray right now. I want you to pray with me. You can do this whenever you're feeling something strong, or frankly, when you're feeling like you're being pulled apart at the seams. Okay? Here's what we pray. Pray, Jesus, you are my healer. You are my healer. You are the integrating center of the entire universe. And you are the integrating center of my humanity. And so, Jesus, I am opening the door right now to my hurt, heartache, trauma, suffering, loneliness. I am opening the doors you are knocking on, and you've been knocking on for months. I open these doors. I give you permission. I ask you to come in. Lord Jesus, access the young places within me in your love. I give you my permission. And I ask you, wash them. Wash them with your blood. Wash them with your love. And unite yourself to these broken places within me. Unite with me in my suffering. And be the integrating center of my life. Jesus, reintegrate me. Make me whole. Make me wholehearted, Lord. I am inviting this. And as we go forward from this session, Jesus, show me where you're coming. And then I'm just going to pause and I'm going to let you in and ask you to be who you are and to do Isaiah 61's promise for me. Lord, come to my shattered humanity. Heal me through union with you in these very places and reintegrate me into wholeheartedness. Be the integrating center. In your name, I pray. Amen.
That prayer, oh my gosh, that invitation. You can see why I chose this one
Yes.
To share in it.
Yeah, it just brings everything from theory and possibility to, I want Jesus to be the center of not just everything, but of me, of my life, and reintegrate me. And John, I just have to say too, like as I'm rewatching this, I love that the choice you made was to be in your home office, because I just see you, and I know so many viewers and listeners too, as a sage and as a father figure in the faith. And this just feels like we get to sit with you and listen to you as if we came over for coffee one day. And so I love the whole atmosphere that it's filmed in.
I hope so. That was the invitation. I wanted it to, because like if we'd done it on a set, there would just be like an artificial to it, but I wanted it to be like, no, you're with me in my home office. This is where I would have a session with you.
Yep.
That's what I was
It's
going to say.
really fatherly.
It felt a little bit like I just got a free counseling session with John Eldridge. Who doesn't want that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So again, gang, there's 5 parts to this, and each one is really beautiful like that. And this film series is available this week. It's just on our website. You can go on our homepage and just watch it for free. But I'm curious what you are reacting to. Let's process what we just experienced.
Man, John, just first of all, that's such a hopeful session.
Yeah.
Like that's what I walked away after we watched it. It just the hope that it instills, especially in this day and age. It's like, I think when you were talking about the prayer that we're going to do, and hey, you can pray this when you're feeling ripped apart at the seams. Well, the whole world feels like it's ripping apart at the seams. And so just that concept that no, Jesus is the integrating force of all things is so hopeful. Because everyone's looking for something solid, and there ain't a lot that's solid in the world. And so that idea that we can see Jesus and experience him as this integrating force that pulls all things back together is so hopeful.
Yeah.
So I was blown away by the hope in it.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. And it's accessible?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's another piece. Like, I guess I hadn't really thought about that. You know, we live in a world where, at least in the West here, where we spend a lot of money to get help for things. And sometimes to the expense of we just don't even think about going to Jesus. And he's available and he's there all the time. And it doesn't require anybody else or anything else. If we're willing to go there, if we're willing to give him permission, if we're willing to give him consent. And so that was another piece for me, is just that reminder of, there's a piece. We have to actively consent to what Jesus wants to do in us.
Yes.
And he's there and he's available if we'll give the permission.
Yes. Yes. One of the great secrets of life is that the door opens from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The door to the soul, the door to your inner world, the door to your heart opens from the inside. We open it. God doesn't push it in. He waits, right? He knocks. Yeah. What struck you, Alan? What was...
Well, so much. I mean, this session about just Jesus, all things being created in and through him, from Colossians 1, like that is a mind-blowing concept that I think when you really take that in, you know, that Jesus isn't just somebody who, you know, was born at a certain period in time and lived for 33 years and sacrificed his life for us so that we could be born again. But you go back in the story to, he actually was the one that everything was created through. And so his story didn't begin there. It began before anything began.
Yes.
And just realizing all that means. And then seeing how the enemy comes against us, as you talk about, to decreate our story.
Yeah.
And that the lies he tells are part of that decreation. When we believe those lies about ourselves, about our story, about God, we're actually becoming less, because we are, in a sense, kind of becoming decreated ourselves from what we were meant to be. And who God created us to be. So that really, to me, was the big aha moment that didn't just add a new idea into my toolbox, but it is changing how I live.
It's such a hopeful thought that Jesus was deeply involved in your creation. Because then it makes sense that he could be deeply involved in your recreation. right? He's not a backup plan,
Yes.
right? Like,
Mhm.
oops, now we need somebody to come in here and fix this mess.
Mm.
But rather right there from the beginning, right? I saw you in your mother's womb. I was there, for Jamie and John and Alex and Alan and everyone listening to us right now. He was intricately involved in our creation. To me, that's a really beautiful thought.
Yeah, it is.
It really is. I wrote that down too at the very beginning of the video. Like, the provision was there before we knew of our need for it, before the trauma happened, before our lives fell apart in whatever ways they have fallen apart. Like, it wasn't an afterthought. And we have this amazing resource that was there from the beginning. It's really hopeful.
Golly, that's good too. Yeah. Have you experienced some of this? Have you, the idea of, I give you access, I give you permission, come to some place in me that's in need, and he's met you there? Have you tasted that?
I have. Yeah. Something that really struck me as I was watching this video too, and pertains to that question, is early on in this message for me, I wanted to believe. Like, my heart was ready to believe. And yet, having not walked in it, it seemed like a dangling carrot. Like, it's out there.
Yeah.
It a little bit further. And there is, and there has been some broken parts of me who would look at this message and say, I see God coming for this person in this way. I see God coming for this person, which feels really discouraging in those broken places.
Yes.
But I will say, the longer I've walked in it and the longer I've applied faith, even in those moments of unbelief, the stronger the faith became. And the more I experienced Jesus coming, not just for John Eldridge, but also for me.
Yes, good.
It's just so hopeful. So I just think of the listeners out there in various places in their lives. Like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, just keep pressing in, because it will come. He is coming. He has come.
Yes. It opens up before you,
Yeah.
right? The horizon begins to open up more, because, we began a couple of weeks ago just talking about the sweet intimacy, like that there is a communion that's available to us, that we just learn to enjoy the presence of Jesus with us, in our inmost being. And as we practice that, and as that begins to become a little more comfortable for us, then he's able to do more and go, hey, can we take a look at that? Hey, would you let me in there? Right. And so it continues to open up, just like your journey you were describing. Yeah. Yeah. And those small beginnings are fine. Those early, gentle, just moments with God, that's beautiful.
Yeah. I think, John, in that session, you were talking about how this can simply come through your daily experience, where you feel something hits you, something arises. It's fear, it's anger, it's something catches you off guard, and that's a moment to go, oh, what is this? What, and then the opportunity to give Jesus permission. And can I share a quick story?
Yeah, please.
I think that kind of illustrates some of the simplicity of this, but the significance of it. You were talking about, the amount of anxiety in the world right now, and it's true. Like, I see it in young people, and that was a huge part of my story. As some listeners know from other talks and things that we've done, anxiety was a huge battle for me, and the integration that Jesus has brought has healed a lot of that. One of the particular ones for me is a story that goes back to when I was in kindergarten and I was first learning to read. And I, we sat around a big circle and the teacher was like, okay, now you're going to read a few sentences and you're going to read a few sentences. And it just, and so it's going around the circle and it's coming up to my turn and I don't know how to read. I actually ended up failing first grade because I didn't know how to read. I had a reading disability and I didn't know it. I just thought, I don't know how to do this. And I don't know what to do. And I panicked. Little kindergartner panicked.
Yes.
And this anxiety arose. And it came in the form of waiting for my turn and then the embarrassment and the shame of like, I can't do this. And so, for years I didn't understand where now that's not the only story in my life of where the enemy got in with this anxiety, but it's one of the pieces and it was a significant one. And it caused me for years, I couldn't read in front of people. I would get panic attacks if I had to read in front of people. And especially when it was coming around in a circle.
Even as an adult.
Right, as an adult.
Okay.
Yep. And so as we've walked in this practice of inviting Jesus into these young places, what Jesus did with this particular young place is he was like, invite me to read with him. So when you need to read as an adult, invite me to read with him while you read. And so I, as a practice, what I began to do, if I was in a situation like we're reading daily prayer together as a team, right before, on the mornings during a mission, I'd just pray and go, okay, Jesus, I invite you to come for Alex in kindergarten, and you take them and teach them to read, and I'm going to read with the guys while you're doing that, and just this beautiful, playful, reintegrating. Jesus becoming the center, right?
Yeah.
Jesus can hold that boy together as the adult Alex reads in that moment. So just a cool little practical way that God has done this for me. Jesus has done that for me.
How many people have stories like that?
Yeah.
That something happened in grade school, something happened in, sports camp when you were young, something, in the neighborhood. And then even as an adult, that little part of us freaks out when we have to read.
Right.
Or step up, to our turn to serve the ball or, whatever, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And that's so hopeful to folks. It's not just push it down.
Right.
Overcome it. No. It's redeem it.
Yeah.
Get Jesus to those places and get some care in there.
Yeah.
And in the video, John, you were talking about how Jesus lives outside of time and space. So yes, he's in our heart, but he's also outside of time and space. And you were connecting that to, so he can come for us like he did for you in our past. That it's not just, let's pick up here, Jesus, with the story and go forward. He does that for sure. But also let him take us where we can't go by ourselves, which is literally into the past moments and issues and the things that the enemy, where he meant to decreate us or harm us. Jesus can take us there if we'll let him, right? And he did that for me. I've shared the story before of you helped me go back to when I was 15 in a really traumatic moment. And I knew the facts, and I could have told that story, backward and forward from here's what happened and here's the effect on me. But what I couldn't do, and I could do years of counseling on that, right?
Yeah.
And know it really well.
Yes.
But I couldn't have full healing from it until Jesus brought me back into the moment and reintegrated me while we were there.
Yeah.
And so that's it's such a big hope and promise that we don't have to just know the scars of our past and kind of go, yep, that was traumatic, but it's okay. But to go, Jesus, you're outside of time and space. Take me outside of it with you to that moment and have healing.
That is so big because it also gets the pressure off of us to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? Well, I'm not sure what happened. I don't know where this anxiety or I don't know where this anger came from. I don't know where this, need to be the center of attention. I don't know, Lord. Like my story's complicated.
Right.
And it has a lot of moments to it.
Yep.
Can you take me there? And Jesus, who sits outside of all time, can go, oh, that's easy for me.
Yeah.
We can walk right back in. Hey, let's go to 7th grade. Remember that party that you were at? And you go, oh my goodness, I totally forgot that. And then here you are. And yes, please come in.
Well, and the lies that we almost all have from those moments, like in the 7th grade party, is I'm all alone.
Yes.
I'm unseen.
Yes.
In kindergarten, when I was 15, whatever the moment is.
Yeah.
And part of Jesus going back, I think, with this is to show you weren't alone then. You actually were seen. I was with you then. And so the beginning of that lie that starts the decreation is, yep, you were on your own then. Nobody saw you then. And to just have the healing of realizing I was seen in that moment and I wasn't alone. I just didn't know.
Yes.
And now Jesus is showing me his presence during that time.
Yes. Beautiful.
Along with the healing.
Beautiful. Yeah. It's so comforting. I'm really excited to put this out on to the world as a series. And 5 films all together about that long, about 20 minutes each, and for groups to do, for Sunday school classes to do, for people to maybe hold little healing times in their home with others, right? And walk some young people through it. Or if you've got a women's fire right now, you're wondering, what should we do content-wise? It's like, whoa. If you all walk through these 5 films, you're going to have so much to talk about. Like that's going to be really beautiful. And you wrote the study guide for this.
Yes. And there's, and I want to hold it up just so people can see this. This is 5-session study guide, and it's the sessions. So you get a code within this book. And when you get it, you not only have the chance to watch the videos, but you also have questions. You have daily time in this message in the week between one session and the next.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful project, John, that really takes your teaching and invites people even deeper into it.
Yeah.
And people can get this online or wherever they get their books, right?
Yep.
But also then we offer, as you were saying earlier, the experience through Wild at Heart. And it is the same sessions, but it only has like 3 questions that people can go into. So
it's a simpler experience.
Right.
Yeah, right there available on our website.
Exactly.
You can go watch it this week. And the book is out. And our friends over at christianbook.com, who used to be the biggest like retailer of discount, christianbook.com, they're doing a 50% off on the book. So that if people want to do groups, there's like a group discount kind of a thing. I think it's 10 copies.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is. But anyway, if you want to get 50% off books and take your group through it, that's a pretty killer deal as well.
Yeah, that's cool.
We'll put that in the show notes, though.
Yeah, we'll put all that in the show notes. Let's not leave the mood right now. What assurance would you offer our listeners as they're like, whoa, that was a really evocative session? What would you want to offer them by way of assurance?
I think I'd say to many of our listeners, yes, it's true. This is for you. You have not been excluded. Nothing in your story has excluded you from the restoration, the provision, the healing. Jesus is in for you.
That's good.
And me.
All right, that's it, folks. That's it. Mic drop. You are not excluded.
Yeah.
This is for you. I like that.
I think the other thing I would say is just trust the process. I think, there are going to be people that go, man, I'm feeling the anxiety, but I sure don't know where this comes from.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yes. Oh, yes.
The process is to invite Jesus into the feeling.
Yes.
He can take you
That's
where
good.
you need to go. And even if you don't find, oh yeah, that's the spot, that's the time, that's okay. Jesus is going to do a work in your heart.
Yes.
If you open it to him. And so it's just the prayer you did at the end of that session.
Yeah.
Like if I was watching this and I was going, man, I've got this thing and I don't know where it comes from and I need Jesus there, I would scroll back to that part of the video and I would pray that prayer.
Just pray that prayer.
And it's simple. And then just trust Jesus is going to take you where you need to go, do what he needs to do, and stick with that.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Yep. That's so good, you guys. Jesus has done very profound restoration work in me without my really understanding much of the process, but just you have my permission. Oh, I remember I give you access to that era of my life, that, 5th grade or whatever it was. And then he just gets in there and does his loving, healing thing. And that's really hopeful, Alex. I like that. Okay, folks, we're going to be back next week with a little bit more that you're really going to enjoy. But meanwhile, if this stirred things in you, rewind and pray the prayer.